The rumble of traffic in the background that you can hear is the A303. It's a main arterial road. Is it arterial? Between, it's east, west, west, east, depending upon where you want to travel. We use it for going down to Cornwall and Devon from sort of London direction, because it's beautiful and takes you past a historic site called Stonehenge. I had planned to do the Stonehenge walk another week, but I'm on my way to Dorset to go to a special art exhibition featuring one of our listeners, which we'll talk about later on in the Photowalk. But I realised as I was going along, I thought, I'm going past Stonehenge. I must make some pictures, although they've been quite clever at the visitor centre. Years ago, you could just park up, roughly where I am now, actually, and head across the busy road, and you could walk around the henge. But they got wise to that, and now they've put a visitor centre in, which is, I think, about half a mile away from the henge itself. That's the only place you can really properly park to go visit, and it costs money to get in. Oh, quelle surprise. So there is a sneaky route around, which I shall go and try and find. Anyway, welcome to
Photography Daily, the Friday Photo Walk.
Did somebody say it was Friday? So cameras at the ready, we're going on a photo walk. Just you, just me, or perhaps one other allowed, as long as they don't snaffle the snacks. But the idea is we're just going to spend some time shooting the breeze, or actually more specifically shooting the landscape or the cityscape or whatever you photograph together. Make some pictures and share some thoughts about photography from the amazing digital mailbag and social media messages that are sent into this here show. The only podcast about photography, well, the Friday edition that is, caveat, we can find, that is like it, because we also play in inspirational moments from guests who've appeared on the show. Today, those guests include a little more from Ryan Visions. We like Ryan on taking to the road in a photo van. Suzanne Stein on making portraits of people you meet and following the story through to a larger body of work. Joe Pugliese on being a big name in LA, but with the same nerves and thoughts as any of us before we start up a portrait session. Then Michael Beecham, who's not been a guest yet, but he's the focus of why I'm in Dorset. Well, why I'm nearly in Dorset, bound for this episode passing, of course, Stonehenge on the way. Michael has just put his first one-man show on, featuring flowers photographed in a unique way, in black and white during lockdown. Also today, how many camera bags do you have? And why do we have this addiction for them? New lockdowns that won't stop the Australian spirit. You're never too old to explore with your photography, learning to make better portraits in lockdown, a flicker of hope in Indonesia, and a few other stories along the way. I'll even admit to pre-match nerves before going back to my own photographic coalface last weekend. We're supported by mpb.com, the number one platform when it comes to trust for buying, selling and trading used camera gear, with offices and warehouses now in Brighton, UK, Brooklyn, USA and Berlin in Europe. You are going to hear today in the show from Sven Ryman, who's enjoying with his girlfriend and a young child a little, guess what, van life. Photographing on the open road, but he had something to say about MPB too. Thank you, MPB, he says. My girlfriend and I bought a Fujifilm 100 to 400mm, which goes with us on the after work photo walks through the forest. Used from MPB, we didn't even buy the like new version. We bought the one that had been a little more used, and it's just great. One little scratch, but it works perfectly, just as promised. Feel free to quote me on that if you'd like to. I will, and just have. We're switching every 15 to 20 minutes to give us a little bit of free time while the other one plays with a child in the forest. I guess going out with a 100 to 400mm lens is a strange kind of photo walk, but right now, that's everything we need for an explore. You can see some of the pictures he made with this lens on the Photowalk show page today. And remember, he bought it from mpb.com. Right, boots on, check. Cameras at the ready, check. Lens caps off, please, check. Let's walk. Here's an interesting field, actually. It's got some burial mounds in it. Wherever you look around this, well, directly around Stonehenge, there appear to be mounds, which I assume were burial mounds. And I thought, oh, there's a field I'd like to get into and get some pictures of these mounds. But I'll get a picture of the sign that I saw ahead of me. Hang on a second. Let me grab my camera. I'm going to edge close to this this sign, which is right at the head of right at the start of the field that I wanted to walk in. Bull, keep out. And I looked at it and I thought, hang on, let me get a couple of pictures of it. Shutter speed 210, f2.5, ISO 160. I'm on my X100 again. I looked at it and I thought, oh, they've just put that sign up to make you to make you think there's a bull here. But there's next to the ominous bull keep out sign, and I'm going to have to change my. There we go. Let's go to f8 so you can see there's more depth in the photograph. I'll explain what all those little bangs are in a moment as well. Right, next to the ominous looking sign, bull keep out, there's ominous there's ominous signs of the fact that it has been stood by the fence itself. And you'll understand what I mean by that when you look at the picture on the show page today. So I'll not be going in there to get pictures of ancient burial grounds. I'll respect the ground and also respect the bull and stay well away. Right, the bangs that you can hear in the background, you might hear occasional bangs. I think I'm very close to Salisbury Plains as well, which is where they do army exercises, firing guns, and you'll find red flags along the road with turnings that you're best advised not to take. See, red flags, signs with bulls, and car parks set up by English Heritage to stop you getting anywhere near this wonderful ancient site that I think you should just be able to walk around without paying an arm and a leg. Anyway, mention before we go any further for Eric Delorme, who's still undergoing his treatment in a very hot Canada right now. If you listen to this show regularly, you'll know that we've mentioned Eric. And I haven't been in touch with Eric actually for a couple of weeks properly, but I did get this link that he sent in, which I'll put on the show page, a set of 5 greenhouse pictures at Ottawa's Research and Development Centre. It's on I like this. It's on a Photowalk page on Eric's own website. So he's got his own Photowalk page on his website now, which I love. And I'll update you with some news about Eric soon. But thank you, Eric, for that link, and I'll make sure to put that on the show page today. Right. It does not matter what kind or level of photographer you are, whether you earn pounds, dollars, euros or not. Let's be honest, most of us have an unhealthy obsession with a camera bag, don't we? Or camera bags. So I thought we'd start this week with a poll, or that poll that I opened up, it seems ages ago now actually, in the Facebook group. Have you joined the Facebook group yet? No, I haven't, Neil. Well, do so. We opened up this poll about camera bag ownership. Seems there's a lot of people struggling with their shall we call it a camera bag habit. Now, the poll, I think, certainly identifies it perhaps as a habit. Numbers may change. I'm going to read out some of the latest numbers that I read earlier on at the time of noting them down for the photo walk. 160 members said they owned 3 to 5 bags. 103 lay claim to just one or a brace, and 44 of you say that you have 6 or more bags. Honestly, what are you doing with them? Actually, I think that's me. I put myself down actually as a 3 to 5, but I found another couple only this morning, so I should probably readdress it, put it into the 6+ group. Couple of the comments. Mark Corlett kind of fesses up with his comment. Do you mean actually own, or the ones my wife knows about? Corey Torgerson, if it's a bag, it's a camera bag. Yes, that's true. So in that case then, I'm going to have to put in 10+ with all the sports bags. Neil Maynard, well, you buy one and it works, and then you see another one advertised, and yet, yes, I know what you mean. You have to get that one. It never ends, he says. Leah Murphy, Own, well, 6+. Use, 4. All Billinghams. Oh, camera bags are the unsung heroes of photography, says Leah. See, Leah, I always think of Billingham like the camera bag equivalent of like the Leica of the camera world. It's the red dot of bags, isn't it? And I've only ever owned one. I had one. It was a present. Owned it, but actually, of all the bags that I have in storage, the Billingham is not one of them. I sold it. It was the only one that actually had any value, I suppose, but no, I no longer have a Billingham. And I really didn't use it very much. I couldn't bear to make it dirty, and that's the whole point. I like my camera bags to look like they've travelled, but for some reason I couldn't do anything with a Billingham like that. John, although I know it's designed for that. John Roberts, I feel called out with this question, Neil, but to be fair, I work in speciality photographic retail, have done for 30 years now. What's speciality photographic retail? I don't know. And many industry events have door prizes, and bags are often a part of them. But I do have a bag addiction. I will admit that. Alex Frederickson, only one, she says, and I hate using it. Does this mean I'm banned? No, not at all, Alex. I use it only when I need more than 2 lenses when I work. Otherwise, I keep everything about my person. I have to say, I dislike bags in general. It's one of my peculiarities. You dislike camera bags? Alex, that is indeed strange. For a photographer. But I'm sure you're not on your own with that. You are I'm now going to know you as the James Bowen of Austria, Alex. If you don't know who James Bowen is, I think you should go and look her up on the... I'll try and remember to put a link in, but go and look her up on the internet. BOWN. I'm recommending you, Alex, a hypermarket Interspar bag, which in your neck of the woods should be widely available. In essence, Jane Bowen was an observer photographer. I think she started there in 1949. I think she only passed away, 5-6 years ago? She's famous for transporting all her camera bags to these most amazing photo shoots with famous politicians like Margaret Thatcher, turning up apparently with them all in a plastic shopping carrier bag. Well, that's the legend anyway. Not sure it's quite like that, but people did say that that's what she used to take her cameras around in generally. But while I think about it, being able to actually tie your camera bag to things is really important. In London, they are well known for doing disappearing acts. So even at the top London hotels. So I tend to have a metal cable now on my bag, and I strap it to... I know people look at me in a strange way, but don't really fancy losing my bag, so I usually strap it to a radiator or something. I'm thinking, well, if you can have my bag, you'll have to take the radiator as well. Oh, the times we live in, huh? The times we live in. This long rambling track takes me a long way away from Stonehenge, but as I'm walking I'm finding more burial grounds. I'm on the what do they call this? The Normanton Down Nature Reserve. Normanton Down is a unique nature reserve nestled in the Stonehenge World Heritage Site, carpeted in colourful, rich flower grassland. It's an important site for ground nesting birds. Has a prestigious past, being home to one of the most impressive groups of prehistoric burial mounds. See, I told you they were burial mounds. We knew, Neil, in the Stonehenge landscape, with over 30 Bronze Age round barrows dating from around 2000 to 1500 BC. Yeah, these by the barrows, do you mean the furrowed ground that runs around each of these burial grounds? This one, I must take a picture of this actually. This mound here has one lonesome tree. Most of the mounds are, they're just mounds. Well, they're mounds. They're important mounds, clearly. But this one actually has a tree growing from it. I don't know what tree it is, but it's unusual. It's unlike the other mounds. So let me get a picture. 750 shutter speed, f5.6, ISO 160. I've got a feeling earlier on when I gave you in fact, not a feeling, I know earlier on when I gave you my camera settings from this X100V, which I'm using this week, that I had the neutral density filter on, which means all my settings, you might have been thinking, oh, that doesn't sound right, Neil. What's going on with you? Anyway, let's walk further down this path. You can hear those bangs, can't you? There we go. It's like thunder in the background. But it's not thunder today. It's a muggy day, but it's certainly not a stormy day. Let's hope we're not wandering into a red flag area, huh? For those in the Facebook group, since we were talking about the poll just a moment ago, I think we should do some more polls. In fact, what I did, there's a question I've popped in there about the trickiest moment you have had as a photographer. Some time and place where you thought, hang on, this isn't quite what I signed up for. Wasn't expecting this. It could be a highly dangerous moment. It could be it could be quite an amusing moment. But a tricky moment. It needs to be a tricky moment. I did spy one in there. I can't remember who it was, but when we do the feature, I'll have the name, of course. Somebody walked into an area where an alligator was essentially stalking them. Yeah, I'd say that's tricky. That counts as tricky. Do you remember I mentioned Colin Mayer last week? He had written a wonderful photo essay comparing the stormy surf and seas around Australia with the current pandemic problems and situation. And, we've looked at Australia very much. If you live in Australia or New Zealand, Australasia generally, we've looked to you as really the fortress, as countries that are getting it right in the Southern Hemisphere. My friend Sue Lloyd, who lives out in Darwin, I understand there's another lockdown there. It only takes a couple of cases, and the place just gets immediately locked down, and that sort of open up, close down. It's tricky, and I know we've been through it ourselves in the UK, and we kind of, I hope. Is there some wood to touch? Hang on, let me walk over to the Bulls field. Sorry, Bull, just borrowing your wood there on your fence. That's all right. Just don't come any closer. I won't. I've seen you over there. Not coming anywhere near you. Touch wood that we're sort of coming out the other end of it to a degree. But moving on. Colin wrote in to follow up that from last week. Hello, Neil. Was pleasantly surprised. Chuffed to bits, in fact, that you chose my image for the cover of the Photowalk episode last week. Now we've been placed in lockdown again and can only leave home for essential reasons, which are shopping for food or other essential goods and services, accessing medical care or compassionate needs, having a COVID-19 test, that sort of thing, getting your COVID-19 vaccination, exercising outdoors, groups of 10 people maximum. Actually, that's a much larger group than we were permitted. Essential work or education where you cannot work or study from home. Yeah. I feel your pain there, Colin. I really do. So keep the podcast going, he says. They're a great link to the rest of the world. Best regards, Colin. We will, Cole. Cole, can I call you Cole? I feel I've just got very personal. So, well, Godspeed, as some people say. And let's hope we thump that thing on the nose very soon. I had a wedding last weekend, and it was kind of like a first step into normality. Oh, look at these fields opening up in front of me. Beautiful blue, or is that purple? Or is it indigo? It seems to be changing colours. As I walk, I'll try and get... In fact, I'm not sure when I get really close that you're going to get the idea of this carpet that I see before me. So let me get it now. Hold on. I'm quite a way away from it, but I think you'll get the idea of this carpet colour. Oh, that's beautiful. It might well be one of those things that looks better to the eye than it does to the camera. It looks great to my eye anyway. But yeah, I was at this wedding, so I did my first wedding in, well, first what I would call large, full-scale wedding since, February 2020. Just a month or so before we went into the pandemic, or the lockdown rather, for the pandemic in the UK at any rate. What was that, 23rd of March? 21st of March? Something like that. Boris spoke to us on the 21st, didn't he? Or was it the 23rd? I don't know. I'll ring Boris and find out. But it was an interesting experience. I have been itching to get back to photographing, but there was a real element of nerves in doing so. And I've never felt nervous. Well, I can't remember a time where, genuinely, I can't remember a time that I've felt nervous about shooting a wedding. I haven't felt nervous of getting it right or wrong, or those kits nerves that people get. Will the cameras freeze, or will my cards corrupt, and all those other, or will I get there on time? Will I find the church? All those myriad of worries that people have about shooting weddings. I can't remember a time that I've ever felt like that, but I felt like this, and I'm a follower of Wim Hof, the Iceman, with his breathing techniques and the cold showers that he takes. Well, I couldn't take a cold shower because it was 3.5 hours drive away, this wedding. So I did do my deep breathing. I was there very, very early. I did deep breathing, and I did several rounds of that, which is essentially 30 breaths in, right into the stomach and up through the chest. So this cyclic breathing, in and out 30 times, and then you hold your breath, or you let the air out, so it all goes up. Then you hold your breath on the exhalation right at the end, just when you've got a tiny bit of air left, almost all gone, and then you spend 60 seconds, then 90 seconds. I have done a 2-minute, and there's loads of physiological things that are going on. Apparently, it's very, very clever. And Wim Hof has spoken to a number of people about this. All these birds in the tree. Look, there's hundreds of them. It's like something out of a Hitchcock movie. And I'm all on my own, next to a burial ground. But yeah, I did my breathing, and then I sort of calmed. I won't say I went Zen-like. I'm not going to get all woo-woo on you, but it did feel a touch Zen-like, and then I was okay. And as soon as I'd shot that first picture at the wedding, it all dissipated, and I thought, I'm okay now, clear. But as far as the wedding itself goes, wow, the masked situation, I have to say, as the wedding went on, the masks came off, and people were less and less diligent about the masks. And I get it, because of course people wanted to make this feel like it was a wedding day, not a scene from a pandemic photo shoot. But at the same time, part of me was thinking, not quite sure how I kept my mask on, even though I am double jabbed. But it doesn't mean I'm immune, does it? Certainly not. So yeah, I've got more weddings coming up. I've had a couple cancel, but more on the horizon, shooting in these new times. Here's one from Sven Ryman. And it's in response, really, to van lifing as a photographer. Sven has decked out his own van. I want to go. I know I'm getting a bit sidetracked today. I'll come back to you, Sven. Hold on. But I want to try and get a picture. These birds, there's like 100 birds, maybe more, just all in this tree, and they flew away from it as I walked past, and they all flocked back to it almost straight away, en masse. And I want to try and get. In fact, there's a load coming across. Wow, let's see if I can get this. Let me get a picture as they all come out the tree. You can probably hear them. I'm going to approach slowly. I've got my X100 ready. The focus on the X100 is really very impressive. So I should be able to, as soon as they lift from the tree, I'm on shutter speed 640th or 800 now, f5.6, 160 on the ISO. So as I get close, they should all just scatter from this tree. They're staying there this time. Hi guys. Oh, there they go. Quite sure if I got it. The trouble is now I'm too close to the tree. Last time you looked great when you did your display. It's very difficult to hold microphones, my clipboard full of your messages, your DMs, your emails, and try and use the camera with the other. I thought I'd make life much easier by using the X100, but yes, there's a layer of ease that I brought in but it's not across the board. Anyway, Sven Ryman, yes, his response to van lifing as a photographer. Yes, Sven has decked out his own, and we mentioned him a good few weeks ago now, and we actually put a picture of Sven's van, his photographic van. Well, I'm calling it your photographic van. It's your base, isn't it, when you go on these photographic missions? Hi Neil, thanks for mentioning me in the photo walk. You mentioned if I were younger. Yes, I did, didn't I? I said something along the lines of, if I were younger, I'd like to deck out a van and take it out on the road myself. He said, even though you did stop yourself right after that, remember that nobody is ever too old for anything. You're quite right, Sven. Well, some things. There's also no need to do something properly before actually doing it. Now that is a very good point, because in my mind, I had to have the van decked out completely the way that I would want it to be. A super job, all finished before I took it anywhere near the road. But you're right. Sometimes just starting is the most important thing. Put the mattress in the van, in the back of the van, and away you go. I knew actually he's moved to Switzerland. A very, very good event magician who had his magician's van, which he didn't need because he was a card trick man. So I never quite understood why I needed a van. Well, I didn't understand until I worked out that actually the van really was his way of getting down to Cornwall every weekend. Mattress in the back, he'd go and surf. A tax-deductible van for a card. Almost called him a trickster. He's not a trickster. You were right there, Neil. No, I wasn't. For a card magician. When all the time, really, it was a ruse for the surfboard, wasn't it? And a mattress in the back. Well, good for him. And what's that expression, that wonderful phrase? Start before you think you're ready. I saw that on a film the other day. I think it might have been Matt Diavello. I can never pronounce his name properly on YouTube. Very good YouTuber. I'm sure I saw that on his channel. Start before you think you're ready. We just wanted to start, says Sven. This van is right now simple, basic, only boxes to sit and sleep on. No electricity. We got LED lighting with a rechargeable battery for the evening. And the next one will be bigger and better. So if you feel the urge to road trip, just keep that in the back of your mind. I will. On the weekend, the three of us actually went out for the first overnight trip, and it was exciting. I took this landscape shot of the Mosel River very early in the morning. It's a beautiful photograph. I looked at it and I thought, is that a drone shot? Remember at the start of the show, I mentioned Sven's 100 to 400 millimeter lens purchase. There we go, it all links up. On the show page today, you'll see that lens in action with some stunning wildlife shots as well. Really getting close, can't you, Sven? As for van life, well, Ryan Visions was last week's guest, and I thought we should hear a little more of Ryan, even though we also featured him on last Friday's Photo Walk. If you haven't heard the interview, it's episode 240. Here's Ryan talking about whether or not he makes plans, and how he funds these amazing adventures.
I don't have a set plan. I think if I had a set plan, when I first got on the road, I had this idea that I was going to photograph a month in this state, and then I was going to move a month to that state. And then I found out the hard way that A, a month is not enough time to photograph any state if I'm stressing myself out. And B, it takes all the fun out of the journey if I'm just consistently on a schedule. And so I really leave myself open with a loose idea of what I have to do, but I don't pick destinations. And that ties back to what I was saying earlier about trying to handle so many different aspects of what it's like to document being on the road. Because a lot of what I'm doing, there is no final destination. There is a lot of searching without knowing what you're looking for. And so that takes away the time of like being on the computer or editing photos. But at the same time, it opens up a world of discovery and opportunity that could be missed otherwise. I'm self-funded. My photography is represented by the Monroe Gallery of Photography in Santa Fe. And so my funding comes from all different, as a photographer now, and I think with a lot of creative fields, the internet has done a lot of things, a lot of good things. And so we have to spread our wings out. And it's not important to rely on just any one source. And so, different tentacles out different ways, but a little bit adds up.
a little bit, and I assume he means a little bit of everything, adds up, which I think should be the new mantra of photography, shouldn't it? Definitely. Ryan Visions, I'll link, of course, to the photographers who give us some inspiration, just a minute or two of inspiration in this week's episode. I'll link to them on the show page. It's the Friday Photo Walk, me with my microphone and my camera. Today I brought out the X100V, although the X Pro one is in the car. So I may yet use it. I'm not sure. I've got quite a long day. I've wandered a long way the other side of where Stonehenge is, and I wanted to get some Stonehenge pictures, and now I'm thinking, hang on a moment, I've got to be down in Dorset, which is a fair drive further yet. A place called Gillingham in Dorset, not the other Gillingham, to go to this photo exhibition today, which I'm really looking forward to, which I'll tell you more about later on. So I'm going to try and hoik myself back along the path, maybe cross the road, cross the busy A303, run across the busy A303, and try and get a snap. Oh, that's not doing it justice. A snap of Stonehenge, just to prove I was here. And actually, I might well come back another day to do a proper Stonehenge walk and get more pictures. I think that might be sensible, since I managed to push myself a long way away from it. I'm just thinking, actually, although there's a helicopter in the background over there, that this is the first photo walk in a long time where we've not been, and I think that's a military one actually, that makes sense, where we've not been constantly buzzed by light aircraft and helicopters. And the reason for that is there's an artillery firing range, which I mentioned earlier on, didn't I? So on your aviation maps, there's big checker box areas, no fly zones. So apart from the gunfire, these are clearly good places to come for photo walks. I'd much rather have the odd pop, bang, than I would constantly and microlights, which sound like hairdryers. I've got a good friend that flies a microlight, so I shall not be too rude. Here's one from Johan Otterdal. Oh, by the way, if you want to send in some stories about what you're photographing, anything that you're working on project-wise, your van life maybe, to make me even more insanely jealous, pictures from your walks, any questions you have, any feedback about the show, it's your show, so send them to studio@photographydaily.show. I'm pointing the mic in the wrong direction, so you wouldn't have heard that barrage just now. It's only me with my microphone, don't shoot. Right, Johan Otterdal, who is in Sweden right now. He was actually van lifing in New Zealand at the start of 2020. See, they're all at it. Hey Neil, there's so much I want to write, but I don't know where to start. And here I go. My photo walks used to be just me and my MP3 player, but podcasts have played a big role now the past 3 years. Glad to hear it. It's still a growing medium. I know some people think that it's well established, but it's still every month, every year, gaining more and more traction, which is very exciting. I love the idea of radio on demand, or rather subject on demand. If you want to know about plumbing, there'll be a podcast for you. If you want to know about photography, there's plenty of podcasts for you. You said you worked in radio in Lanzarote, says Johan. That's awesome. Where and when? I lived in Costa Teguise 2001, 2002, 12 months in total. From 2000 to 2011, Coralejo was my base on Fuerteventura. Yes, I used to look across to that island, and I just see from Puerto del Carmen, I just see this beautiful long stretch of sand, and I never really got a chance to properly explore, but it certainly sounds like one of the wonderful islands to be on. I worked, as he says, on Hot FM. I had 2 hours a week where I talked about music and played my favourites. See, that's the best thing about that kind of radio. I remember working myself, it was RTL, and it was a long time before that. Not the RTL, the Radio Tele Luxembourg, no, not that one. The German owner quite fancied himself as owning RTL, I think. And So he named his radio station RTL, which stood for Radio Tourist Lanzarote. And he used a very similar logo, but he got away with it. And my experience, Johan, was a long time before yours. 1987. No, Neil, you don't look a day over. Just, flattery will get you everywhere, but yeah, you're not being honest with me. Yeah, it was what was it? I arrived the day before the big storm. I phoned home, because there was a big storm in the UK that day. Michael Fish was a very famous weathercaster, and he told the country, don't worry, there's no hurricane on the way. I had a call today from Mrs. Dainsbury or something, from Salisbury or wherever it was, who said, there seems to be a hurricane on the way. And he said, no, there isn't. And the next day, massive storms. And when I spoke to my dad on the phone, he said, I'm glad you got there safely. We've had every single fence panel blow down, bar one. Yeah, it was a massive storm. And there I was on the beach in Lanzarote. Although I did have a very sort of rude awakening start to my travels. I got on a car from the airport, and in my awful Spanish, because this chap didn't speak a lot of English, I managed to get myself my 2 record cases, 2 very heavy record cases, or boxes, my suitcase, carry-on, all sorts of other stuff. And he dropped me off at the wrong place entirely, the wrong part of town. That was not a great start to my adventure, my journey. Anyway, back to Johan. I really appreciate the work you do and the guests you have. The podcast is inspiring, educational and relaxing. I got diagnosed with ADHD last year, and photography has really been my main medicine. When I get a passion for something, I do it 100%. Surfing, music, travel, and a real obsession for photography. COVID has been a bad time for all of us, but Sweden has been more open than most countries. So last year I tried to take my portrait photography to the next level. See, I like that. You use the time to think, right, okay, I'm locked down. There's not much I can do in the world, so I'll stick here and actually improve part of my photography. I think that sounds like it was a great idea. I've had around 10 photo shoots over the past 6 months. I've never felt like a good photographer, and compared to some of my favourite photographers, I feel like a pure beginner. My favourite black and white photographer is Alan Schaller. My favourite photographer all around is Theo Goslin. Yes, and yes, on both counts. You reminded me I need to try and reach out and see if they'll come on the show. But he says, I'm currently doing a 100 Strangers project in black and white at Crosser using the Fujifilm system. Of course, photographing people around Gothenburg, just at the beginning of it. Got around 20 so far, but only posted a few on my website. So Johan has sent some what he calls random portrait pictures. But I'm not looking at them as random. The double exposure one, fantastic. Yes, super, very inventive. And I'll share these on the show page, of course, along with a link to your website. So thank you, Johan. I think portraiture is such a fascinating genre, or pastime, because it doesn't have to be a full-on I'm doing this only for the greenbacks occupation, does it? You end up meeting the most fascinating people. I made a film, my window cleaner. I haven't seen for ages, actually. You've reminded me. I need to tap him up and see how he is. He had me go around and photograph and film, actually, his mother when she turned 80. And it made for just a wonderful afternoon, making portraits of this great storyteller. We put a photo book into her lap, essentially, and she just looked through it, and the stories just flowed. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. So you do meet the most fascinating people, and they don't have to be famous. When I photographed the window cleaner's mum, she's not famous, but she was wonderful. And I really fancy the idea, actually, of a podcast just making portraits and going for a walk with the most incredible everyday people. These stories that you hear from people. Fancy going for a walk? I want to make some portraits and we'll have a chat about your life. Yeah, I think it would be really interesting. Neil, you don't have the time. Maybe not at the moment. No, I don't. I spoke to Suzanne Stein back in episode 188, And I was fascinated, not just by her street work, but by a lady she'd met in New York, close to where she lived. And this is what I mean by, as a photographer, keeping your eyes open. And sometimes you spot somebody, don't you? You think, oh, you'd be really interesting to get to know a bit more and make some pictures of, spend some time with. A lady called Jeanette.
I had just moved into New York City, and I lived on 13th Street. I now live on the Lower East Side. I since left 13th Street, but she just rounded a corner with her little old dog and her cane, and this was about 3.5 years ago. I was like, first I saw the dog, and it was this crazy little dog, and I was like, oh my God, what just happened? You know, the whole street just changed, and I just got down and started taking pictures of the dog, and then she rounded the corner, and I was like, whoa, you know, it's really interesting. And, you know, over a period of about 1.5 years, it was pretty superficial initially. I'd find her at night and we would chat, but I wasn't really in her world, but I would take pictures of her. And then over a period of a couple of years, she just started becoming more accustomed to me, more trusting. And I began to visit her at home, and her home is really like a museum. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's really bad now. It's filled with bed bugs, and it's actually something I'm going to write about on my blog really soon.
Right.
It's going to be up on my blog this week, and the pictures. I just began to see her as, you know, she's just trapped, and the people in her building largely ignore her. All these young people in these nice apartments that have been renovated, and she's a fixture on the street, and some people will stop to talk to her, and some people will sort of give her a hello and try to get away as quickly as possible. But she's just such an amazingly interesting person.
People have really gone for wild grass this year, haven't they? Even in our back garden, we've gone wild about the wild grass. There we go. That was Suzanne Stein, and now with her voice and her words ringing in your ears, it's time to go make a portrait, isn't it? I'm feeling enthused. I must admit, and I've talked about this before. During the period of lockdown, it's given me a lot of time to think about my photography, and portraiture is something I really want to get more into, kind of again really, because I was doing it. And then my social photography direction took me another way for many years. I'm not talking about family photography. I take my hat off to those that can photograph children running around their studios like headless chickens. But no, I'm talking about character portraiture, single focus portraiture, really, working with one person at a time rather than groups. And anyway, talking about taking pictures, actually, it's time for us to make a picture, isn't it? And if you feel like you'd like to, send it in. The first thing that you see, that's the feature that this has become known as. And in my folder, my first thing that you see folder, quite a few of you have sent in incredible pictures, and I do apologise if I don't get to yours this week. I'm releasing a few at a time, and that will take us nicely through the summer, I think. So if you send it in, it might be a couple of weeks before yours appears, but don't be perturbed, it'll be there. And this week we've got on the show page a selection of those who've sent their first thing that you see pictures in. Now, this isn't designed to be art. There are some fabulous pictures, yes, but it's not designed to be art. i.e., it is literally the first thing that you see. It's a kind of, call it a photographic exercise within this Photowalk show. Who do we have this week? Paul Ballaresque, who has a picture of what looks like a treehouse, possibly, in Vina del Mar, which is where he lives. I'm kind of obsessed with the sound and noises of your podcast, says Paul. The water and the sound your boots make while you're walking on gravel or in the grass, the wind, the aeroplanes, and the shutter on the X Pro 1. Oh, I'm sorry, because the last couple of weeks I've been using, of course, the X100. But the X Pro 1 is in the car. It's standing by looking at me saying, don't forget me. Once upon a time, I was your preferred option. You will be again, X Pro. I'm just chopping and changing a bit, for a couple of weeks anyway. I had, says Paul, an X100F, very silent, and I still own an XT3, but once I got my hands on the X Pro 2, did I realise the sound of the shutter, so much better than other cameras. It's not supposed to be about that, is it? But he says it is total ASMR. Yes, it is. And if you don't know what ASMR is, we talk about it occasionally. Go look it up, ASMR. We could run a whole YouTube channel, could we, Paul, do you think? Just on the sound of shutters. And maybe camera bag zips. That would be weird, wouldn't it? Right, next we've got... hang on. Let me just... I've got to get through here. T-shirt on with loads of... God, the wild grass has gone wild. The thistles have gone wild. Everything's gone wild. It's like Return of the Triffids. Hold on, let me get through this gate. Trying to do it with one hand. There we go. Oh, nettles. Every week now, nettles. Oh, no, come on, this is unfair. I've actually got to go in where the nettles are to get myself through the gate. Ow. Oh, that was unfair. Who else do we have? Clinton Woosley, out of the window at the University Hospital in San Antonio. Jason Fang in New Zealand, who have been listening to me talking about using Canon and Fujifilm cameras as a team again. And look what he saw out of his window as he was listening to that moment. You have to go to the show page to find out. There we go. There's a tease. There's a reason to go to the show page. Oh, on that note, by the way, we're going to introduce a Facebook page as well. So there's kind of a gateway to the Facebook group now because it's easier to share episodes on. Just while I remember, and Neil Ford, who helps out that part of the show, he'll be proud of me remembering that. Phil at Frozen Time, a picture somewhere in the States of a house and a walk with Phil's camera bag still in shot. That's a proper first thing you see picture, isn't it? Because you made the picture, you didn't think, let's clear stuff out the way. This is an authentic picture of an authentic moment. As is Dave Clark's, actually, the grumpy old man with a camera. It's another truck cab shot, 6:40 in the morning, construction zone. I mean, if the feature had been a minute later in last week's show, he'd have got a skyline shot of Providence. So folk are taking this very seriously, you know. They're actually, when I say take the picture, you're actually taking the picture. Don't take it now. No, I don't care that you see something that you're thinking, hang on a minute, he'll never know. You'll know. And that's the important thing. So who else have we got? Jan Erik Mostrom's super greenery with a tree in the midst. Martin Neal in your pub's beer cellar. Ivan Creeth on the highway. Mike Miller walking the Shih Tzu, who does more sniffing than walking when he's out and about, apparently. And Andy Thibault's camera on dashboard, taken with a smartphone. It's an XT something. It's the XT dash cam. And Ryan Katsanis, thank you for the cool angular bedroom shot. Very nice. So, right, this is the moment. So in the show, do you know, I only meant to do it once. It's a bit like the story of the Photowalk full stop, really. It was supposed to be a stopgap show nearly a year ago, where I thought, I've got to do something this week, and I don't have a guest. I know, we'll do a photo walk. It wasn't quite like that, but it was practically like that. And then this is stuck as one of the main episodes of the week now, isn't it? So this is the moment where I say, grab whatever you can to make a picture that's in your hand. So if it's a smartphone, it's a smartphone. If it's a camera, fine. If it's a DSLR, if it's a mirrorless, it doesn't matter what kind of flavour it is. Nikon, Canon, Olympus, Leica, will get you with your red dot. Whatever you have, grab the camera, and it's the first thing that you see. And I will join in. Hang on, let me put the notes on the floor. And grab your camera, whatever it is, as I say. And I'm going to give you a countdown. 5. Grab your camera, yeah, 5, 4, 3, not yet, 2, 1, there we go. First thing that you see, not necessarily at the front of the show, but definitely a moment. And send that in to studio@photographydaily.show. That's studio@photographydaily.show. And I'll be using a selection of them. It's a very loud buzzy thing near me. Go away. Oh no, hang on a minute, it's not near me. It's a drone over there. God dear. They sometimes sound like a swarm of bees, don't they? Or a strimmer, one of the two. Right, mails, one from the Reverend Carlos Chiano. You must let me know, Carlos, if I'm saying that correctly. And if in fact I'm supposed to call you the Reverend first. I'm not quite sure. Dear Neil, the other day I went for a photo walk at the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, just south of Cleveland, Ohio, a place I visit not often enough, unfortunately. Just as I parked my car, I heard the whistle of an arriving train. The Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad. Whoa, look at that. Tourist train that runs the length of the valley through the park. I had to scramble to get my camera and get out of the car to snap a couple of pictures before it left the station. Not great pictures, but, I fancy that your boy Thomas might actually like them. I added a couple more of my pictures from the walk to give you a flavour of this place. Keep on walking. Yes, I saw the railway. What a fabulous looking railway. Or railroad, I should call it, shouldn't I? You don't do things by halves. I looked at look at this, the observation car. I just printed off a picture. Neil, that's not very Greta of you. I know, sorry, Greta. I printed off a picture, and this observation car is everything that I romanticize about taking one of those wonderful sort of dome-glassed observation cars through some of the most amazing scenery of America, through the Rockies, places like that. But this one, this looks scenic enough. I tell you what, this is Thomas's dream. Trivia on the night. There were all sorts of things that they do. Trivia on the train night. There's a murder mystery night. Sounds like it should be a film on a train. My favourite though, cocktails on rails. I'm not sure about the canvas and wine on the rails. Trying to paint and drink wine and take a train journey. It'll end up looking a bit like a Jackson Pollock, won't it? Or a load of old Anyway, pics and links will be on the show page, and you can see the pictures that the Reverend Carlos Chiano, I'm sure I'm saying that correctly, Chiano, has made. So thank you very much for those ones. One from Jason Hedges. Hello, Neil. Catching up slowly with the previous episodes. And hello from Orvieto, which is Umbria in Italy. Perhaps it's the Italian connection, but episode 209 with Joe Pugliese. Wonderful to hear a photographer at the top of his trade in Los Angeles, which must be a very challenging place to make your mark. Anyway, admit that he's nervous during shoots and share how he works to alleviate this. In this kind of Insta world where everything is perfect and everyone is superhuman, how refreshing to hear such genuine honesty. Do you know, thank you very much for your mail, Jason, and the nice things that you wrote that I haven't read out, because I'm being a bit British. But you're right. Yeah, that was certainly part of the interview that struck me the most. When you talk to photographers, and I talk to quite a few, obviously, for the show now, there's always something that strikes me as very different about every single creative that you interview. You could ask, I reckon you could ask the very same questions. You could have 10 questions that you ask every single week, but you'd still be struck by one facet, one emotion, what something about that photographer that's truly very different, something that they leave you with. And Joe Pugliese, despite all the famous folk that he's photographed, all the showbiz people that actually come to him and request him by name for portraits now. He's one of those kind of photographers in LA, which is, as you correctly say, a very competitive market. But I was left with that he does have nerves. He's not superhuman. He's like the rest of us. And that was a really refreshing part of that interview. You're quite right. So shall we, I think we should hear a bit of Joe Pugliese for a bit of inspiration, as we do between our mails that we read together on this photo walk.
This subject has seen the best of what we do. And, I owe it to myself and I owe it to them to really, come up. And I think that's where the nerves come in. And then, that nervous energy, I know how to manage it, in that it's not my energy with the subject. I'm very calm and confident with the subject. I love speaking to people. I never feel their fame or weight or power. It's always very organic. But I think visually, I'm always thinking in the back of my head, are we getting something special? Is there something that will be memorable here? Is there something that can last? And, I don't know if I ever get that, or if I don't know if I get it on that day. I might not know for 20 years if that was a memorable picture or not. But I keep that bar really high. That bar is unachievable for me. I never feel like I've got it. I really, really never feel like, pat on the back, I nailed it. If I feel like I get 80% there, I feel like that's, that's all I could ever ask.
The wonderfully down-to-earth Joe Pugliese. I'd like to have another chat with Joe at some stage. I do feel there were some more questions about some of the people that he's photographed during this illustrious, wonderful career that he's had. But we will do that another time. I think Joe will come back on, won't you, Joe? Yes. Okay, there we go. That's done then. Right, here's one from... by the way, just in case for some reason you've tuned in, to use the old-fashioned lingo, 3/4, 2/3 the way through this podcast, and wonder what the devil's going on. This is the Friday Photo Walk. It's me with a microphone, us with our cameras, just making some pictures as we're out and about. I'll leave my pictures on the show page today as well. Nothing. I've got to say, I've let you down a bit this week. I'm sorry that my pictures aren't. In my mind, I've had this right. We've got to get to this exhibition, and then I walked all the way down this path and took myself away from Stonehenge, so I've ended up with a very, very small picture of Stonehenge. I have to go back and do that properly, and so consequently I've not been concentrating on the photos today. It is a bit almost first thing that you see constantly for me today. So it's the Photo Walk show. I like to think there's nothing else quite like it in the podcast sphere. I'm sure there isn't. Where we play some inspiration between the pieces as well, between the letters. I mean, you drive the show. It's your show. Here is one from Gilang Dokman in Indonesia. Hello, Neil. Thanks for featuring my mail in your Photo Walk a while back. It caught me by surprise when you mentioned my name in the show. It tends to have that effect, I think. For the we were talking about disinfecting, weren't we? Just for some context, so this makes sense. I was talking about, do you remember a time during that, well, you might not have done this, it does depend where you live in the world and how you feel about it, of course, but do you remember for a time where everybody was disinfecting everything? If a letter came through the letterbox and the postman, you'd leave it there for a day, because supposedly the virus would go away in that time, and then somebody said, no, it hangs on to metal and wood for 5 weeks at a time. I mean, all sorts of nonsense was flying around, and then it came to pass that it doesn't really hang on to things quite like we thought it would, and so on and so forth. So we were talking about disinfecting stuff like shopping and mail that came through the door. And I remember pictures from a very good friend of mine on I think it was on his Instagram. He was sort of showing this daily disinfecting battle that he went through with shopping. But so Gilang says, for the disinfection thing, yes, you're right. There hasn't been a well-documented report regarding COVID transmission via surface contact. Now, he works in a hospital, doesn't he? So he knows a bit about this sort of stuff. So it's not as bad as we thought. I've been easing up on this, actually. So now for me, the only things I absolutely must disinfect are the things I bring back from the hospital, such as the phone and the laptop and the chargers and the glasses and so on. But hey, enough with the COVID talk here. His words, not mine. I attached some pictures I took while I cycled around my area, and it's black and white ones. There's a colour one in there as well. I spotted the one of the ice-cold coffee. Oh, that looked inviting. It's been a breath of fresh air, really, literally, and photographically, getting out. Oh yeah, on the cut. I should really read ahead, shouldn't I? I should read these first before I read them to you. And one colour picture, yes, the iced coffee, which was the first thing that I saw moment. So when you see these pictures that will be on the show page today, that's Galang's first thing that he saw moment. It was quite liberating. Like you said, it doesn't have to be perfect. These first thing that you see pictures he's referring to. Don't think too much. Just take the picture. Click. Done. Yes. I think that's what's sort of caught people's imagination with this feature, hasn't it? Really, it literally is. Doesn't have to be something that's gallery worthy. Just needs to be something that you faithfully took at that one moment. So thanks, Gilang, and your pictures will be on the show page today. The shaft of light and the grass picture, by the way, the black and white one. Oh, fantastic! I'll be proud to have that on my wall, I have to say. Right, not so much a last mail of the week this week, but a last moment of the week time, which didn't sound right at all sung, did it? Last mail of the week time. That sounds much more natural for me. Anyway, but it's a last moment of the show time this week. By the magic of podcasting, several hours have actually elapsed since what we call in radio and podcast land the last link. I was setting out, wasn't I, to this exhibition today, this show, and now it's the other side of it. So you travelled with me, and without knowing, I've been into the exhibition and I've come out again. And I want to give a mention to Michael Beecham, who is a faithful supporter of the show. And earlier in the programme today, I did him the enormous disservice of saying that I was heading out to Gillingham with a j. In fact, I'm not quite sure whether Gilang Dokman, is that Gilang Dokman in Indonesia? See, now I am confused because I got Gillingham wrong, because it's actually Gillingham. Gillingham is in Kent and Gillingham is in Dorset. And I went to Dorset, which is on near the south coast of England, not towards Kent, which is a long way away from, well, it's actually physically not a long way, but it's just a series of roads, motorways, that make it quite a long way for me from where in fact, it's easier, probably quicker to fly to Spain, maybe not in pandemic times, than it is for me to get to the end of Kent. Anyway, but so I called the place Gillingham when it is actually Gillingham. I'm not going to go back and correct it. I'm going to stay authentic. So just please accept my apologies instead. Harder G. So let me start again. So I went to see this exhibition. Now the exhibition is called Sanity Within the Stasis. And I don't want to give too much away because I'm going to play you an excerpt in a moment. And in case you think, oh, that sounds interesting, I'm actually going to play the entire interview because Michael is a Fujifilm shooter. I'm going to play that on the Fujicast on Monday. So that will be the feature interview on Monday. But I want to play you an excerpt now so you get a flavour of it. I should probably read you a little bit about the exhibition blurb, if you like. Now, Michael is a designer by trade, a blooming good one, to sound a bit English. His photography tends to be, well, it is landscape, isn't it? He absolutely loves black and white, and he's very good at black and white. In fact, I've got one of his prints, which is in my sound booth, which I'm very proud to own. And during lockdown, he took lockdown we all took lockdown seriously, some more than others, it seems, without getting too political. So he, when lockdown started in the UK in March, he was faithful to the cause, if I might call it that, and went no further than his back garden. So his lockdown project, whereas a lot of people were out there photographing the empty streets, his lockdown project was nothing like that. He stuck close to his garden and photographed flowers, just flora in his garden. Now you might say, oh, blimey, really? But the way that he did it, just amazing. He got his X100, so it is a Fuji camera. You'll be forgiven for thinking sometimes that this is an offshoot of the Fujicast. It isn't. You can shoot whatever you like. But he got his X100, which has a very small lens opening. Look, I've got mine here. Look at that. You can see that, can't you? Neil, no. We can't see out the other side. Oh, apologies. I thought you could. And he experimented with covering it with cling film, which gives these pictures this sort of beautiful, sort of soft effect. I mean, I guess by default it ends up it does end up focally a little soft, but not an out of focus soft. Does that make sense? I hope it does. And so he made a set of pictures. Now, he didn't set out to make work for an exhibition or indeed a book or anything like that. He was making this work for him, as the title of the exhibition goes, Sanity in the Stasis. And he writes, along with most creative people I know, the COVID-19 lockdown has had a very profound effect on our ability to get out and create. Locations, landscapes and vistas were no longer open to us, and yet the desire to create just didn't go away until a more opportune time. That's so correct, isn't it? So true. We didn't just say, I'll tell you what, I'll take a couple of months off, put my camera... I mean, I know some people did, and in fact, I put mine away for a little while. But, inherently, it's within most of us, isn't it? You still want to create. You still want to get out there. You still want to make pictures. You still want to do what you do. As the saying goes, Michael says, desperation is the mother of invention, especially when it comes to keeping your mental health in check during a time when uncertainty and no small amount of worry and anxiety is always picking at edges. Stuck at home and trying to find different ways of creating images, I had an idea one day which opened up an entirely different way of shooting for me. And this is where it comes in, really, his interview. I want to play you just an excerpt of my chat with Michael Beecham And on Monday, as I say on the FujiCast, you can hear more, much more. This is Michael Beecham talking from the exhibition. That's why it sounds a little bit echoey.
Even if you don't show them, I would say get them printed. Having a body of work printed in front of you that you can tangibly look at and say, do you know what, I did this. This was me. Like this wasn't me trying to hide away. Even if nobody else sees it, maybe even if like Daniel Milner would say, if you just put it into one book, that's your copy, nobody else has to see it, you can say, I did that. And that feels like a really good natural end to me of a body of work. For me, I just chose to be able to exhibit it because I'm able to. I suppose that's the brass tacks of it. I'm able to exhibit. I have a gallery space near me. I hope people just enjoy them when they come round, and if they do, great. But the work was for me first and foremost. Having done that, now I suppose in a way I allow people to see what I've done, and if they I always think it's a little bit like when you have a newborn baby and you taking photographs. You hand your newborn baby to somebody else, and you hope that they don't find it ugly. You think that you hope that they find it just as beautiful as you do, but eventually somebody's got to see your baby. And I feel that with my work. I'm at the point now in myself where I'm confident to hand somebody my baby of a body of work and say, I hope you don't find it ugly, I hope you find it okay. And if they do, that's great, but it's still my baby, and I think it's beautiful.
Well, so do we, Michael. So do we. I will link to the exhibition, which is on until mid-July in the UK, in beautiful, let's say this all together now, Gillingham in Dorset, South England. If you're not in the UK, fear not, there'll be some pictures on the show page today which will be linked to in your app. And I'll also link through to the collection on the page too. So wherever you are in the world, you too can find some sanity within your own stasis, or his stasis. And that's it for today. Keep sending your questions or feedback to studio@photographydaily.show so that I can feature you in the mailbag edition, which is this here Friday Photo Walk. Right, next week on the show, the first part of a two-parter. Starting Wednesday, the second part, which will be an extra day, so we have a bonus edition coming up. I'm talking to a photographer called Jason P. Howe, whose incredible work showing life in Colombia with those fighting for control made for a potent book called Colombia Between the Lines. He made the work self-funded. Listen to this, literally working for a camera shop before going for the first time to a country where he learned on the job how to make a story about a civil war that's taken the lives of 200,000 innocent civilians. And I might add, there are journalists within that number. Then he'd return to work in a supermarket between missions to make the money he needed to go back and tell more of the story. He went on to work as a combat zone and conflict photographer for major news outlets. But he's proof that hard graft starts at grassroots level, learning as you go. It's an incredible story, which he shared from where he now lives, his own sanity in the stasis to a degree, in beautiful Andalusia. So it's a story about being a photographer. It's also a very personal story. One of those being about a woman called Marilyn, who he formed a romantic relationship with in Colombia, before one day she admitted to being a paramilitary assassin.
That just meant that she really kind of completely lost her moral compass. And when I questioned her as to what she was doing, what are you doing with the money that you're getting from this killing? So you're trying to create a new life for you and your daughter, and she wasn't.
Human stories told on Wednesday in part 1. I think it's one of our most potent stories yet we've had on the show. I really mean that. Be sure to visit today's website show page for links to guests and things discussed. You'll find a link on the description in your podcast player app. Thanks to mpb.com, the number one team when it comes to buying used kits, selling your used or trading in Europe, the UK and States. Music in the show was from artlist.io. I look forward to photographing with you, hearing from you and talking with you next time. There we go, car. Another photo walk. Oh, we went a long way this week. I know we did. All the way down to Dorset. Did you enjoy the run out? Oh yeah, but I was a bit worried about the firing range. Oh yeah, that was a bit close, wasn't it? And you're a red car, like red rag to a bull. It's kind of a red target to a sight. Not very funny. No, we were okay. We were far enough away. Yeah, a bit like Stonehenge. All right. Don't rub it in. Not my finest photographic moment. Does look a little bit like a red arrow that my mum would have taken from the aerobatic display team. What's that, Mum? That dot? That's the red arrows. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Oh, well, we can't always be perfect, can we? Absolutely not. And certainly not me. Come on, let's go home.
Photography Daily is a Loading Zone production.